Dirt manicure. It's my favorite type of manicure. It's really the only type of manicure you will ever see on me, and my fingers will probably be dirty from now until October, so fair warning. Hello everyone, it is a Sunday afternoon and it is dreary and cold, and I think there is a chance of snow. I don't think it's snowing yet, but it's just making me really long for warmer weather. And let me tell you, this week, it has been a week. It has been stressful and lots of anxiety, and I just want something fun. I want something that brings me joy, and that for me is starting seeds. I love it. It does. It brings me so much joy. It gives me hope that there are brighter, sunnier, warmer days coming. I get my hands in the dirt and watch some things, you know, spring to life and fill my house with greenery. So that's what we're doing today. While I have everything out, I figured I'd bring you all along and show you how I do it. So this is my 6th year starting seeds, and I have done it every which way you can think of. Used all sorts of different kinds of containers and growing mediums. And all of that has brought me to how I do it today. So first things first, I figured I would share with you what I actually start indoors as opposed to what I directly sow outside in the garden. So I've got my massive pile of seeds here that I am growing. This is a lot because I'm nuts. Things that I do start inside: tomatoes, and I'm not going to share with you all of the varieties that I'm growing today in this video, but I am going to do another video sharing the varieties, how much I'm growing for our family of 4, as well as ways that I'm planning to use what I'm growing, just to give you all a little bit better of an idea on how much it takes to get you what you need for your preservation and like fresh eating goals. So that video is coming. But tomatoes and peppers get started inside. All of my herbs, some herbs I'm actually gonna be starting today with you, like my woodier herbs, oregano, thyme, rosemary, sage, lavender. Some other things in here will get started today as well. But herbs do get started inside for me. All of my squash, pumpkins will get started inside. Melons, if I grow them, I'm on the fence if I'm growing them this year. I haven't had the best luck with them. All of my greens this year I'm starting inside, although they do perfectly fine if you direct sow them. I mean, everything that I'm saying, you can just directly put them in the garden. By starting your seeds ahead, you are gaining time, you're extending your growing season. So by starting things so far in advance, you're putting out fairly mature plants when it is actually safe to plant outside. So that means I'm getting a harvest sooner. That's one reason I love seed starting as opposed to either direct sowing or buying plant starts, because I can choose when I'm starting them and how big the plants are when they go out. Some other reasons I am saving money, like one of these packs, let's just say, okay, this is Swiss chard. One of these packs has 80 seeds in it. This cost, I mean, this is an older pack, so this was probably $1. So for $1, I get 80 Swiss chard plants. There is no way I could go to a greenhouse and purchase 80 of these starts for $1. There's no way. So same goes with everything. It saves a lot of money by doing it yourself. You also get to control your growing methods. You know, what kind of growing medium you're using, what type of fertilizer. I like to be in control of that. I like to know that it's good organic practices, so that's important to me. And you also have a variety, a better variety than you could find at most greenhouses. You can find, like, I probably have 60 to 70 different varieties of tomatoes that I can choose from, where if I go to the greenhouse, I might only be able to choose from like 10. So those are some reasons. That was a bit of a sidetrack, but good to know. So some other things that I'm gonna start inside: all of my greens. So my kale, spinach, Swiss chard, and lettuces. Those will get started in here, as well as any of my brassicas. So cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, those sort of things get started inside as well. Cucumbers, my leeks, and onions, I do start inside. And celery, I'm not sure where that went. Is this the celery? No. Celery will get started inside as well. But other than that, the only other thing I start inside are my flowers, and I have a ton of them. Like these are all, yeah, these are all flowers, and I'm super excited about it. I might be a little bit nuts, but I am thankful for the amount of space we have. I know I definitely would love more, but a 1/4 acre is a lot more than some people have, and I am thankful for it. And I pack as much as I possibly can into that 1/4 acre. I mean, there is just stuff jammed everywhere. I will be starting all of these flowers from seed. Fun fact, I used to work as a florist for a little while, and I should say I used to work with a florist. I was not the florist. And I also worked in a greenhouse for a year, and those are two of my favorite jobs. And I've always had a love for flowers, but those two jobs really instilled a love of flowers in me. I'm a big fan of a backyard bouquet. I love always having flowers in my house throughout the growing season, and I might even try selling some this year. So we'll see what happens there, but all of those are getting started inside too. So the things that I am not starting inside. I am not starting my peas inside. You can, but these do just fine planted out before the last frost, so they can tolerate a frost. I think I had them out last year mid-March, and we ended up getting like 6 inches of snow, and they were perfectly fine. They weren't even a little bit damaged. My green beans, you can start them inside, but they don't take very long to germinate. They take off pretty quickly, so I just plant them right outside. And my okra doesn't like to be transplanted, so that gets put right outside. Something else that doesn't like transplanted is corn. I'm not growing any corn this year, but that's something that you'd want to put directly in the soil. Then I've got all of my root veggies, so my carrots, beets, and parsnips. They are root veggies. You're eating from the root. And they've got a long tap root. They're not going to want to be transplanted. They're not going to fare well. So these get put directly in the soil. That is all of what I am growing and what I am starting inside. So the way that I choose when to start these things, all you have to do, let me find a good example. All you have to do is look at the back of the packet, and it'll show you right there, it says 10 to 12 weeks, start indoors. So I go through all of the things that I want to start, and I put them into categories, 12 to 14 weeks, 10 weeks, 8 weeks, 6 weeks, so on and so forth. And then I have them all just put together with a little piece of paper and paper clip, and it says like when I should start them inside or when I should plant them outside. And that's just how I keep track of everything. Moving on from that, I'm gonna show you what I use to start my seeds indoors. Now, these are Bootstrap Farmer trays, and they're pots and inserts. They're an investment. They're pricey, not gonna lie, but they're built to last. This is gonna be my 4th year using these, and they're still solid. I mean, as long as you're storing them well and not putting them in the sun, they're great. So I can link them for you. Just be aware they do cost a pretty penny. I think they're worth it. When I first started, I just used like the trays that you could find at Walmart or Lowe's, Home Depot. And they're fine, they work, and you use whatever you can afford and whatever is available to you. But they don't last. Even if you're using them very carefully, I haven't had them last much more than a season, and that's just not sustainable. I wanted something that I could use year after year, so that's why I went with Bootstrap. There's things like peat pots that you can use. I don't love them, actually. I really hate them. They're terrible when it comes to watering. They just suck up all the moisture, and it's really hard to keep a nice moisture level in those. So if you're just starting, I would totally stay away from those. So other things I've used though are like red Solo cups or any sort of drinking cup. You just have to make sure you're putting drainage in them. They need holes to drain water. You don't want your plants and their roots sitting in water. So you can just drill holes in them, poke holes in them, whatever you need to do. I've seen people use things like egg cartons, which is totally fine. You just want to keep in mind that roots are going to be growing and developing. Like everything is going to have a decent sized root ball. It's, you know, it depends on how soon you're starting them indoors. Let's just take a tomato for example. I start them 10 weeks before my last frost. There's no way they're staying in an egg carton container for those 10 weeks. They're going to outgrow that in like 3 to 4. So, you know, they have a nice size root ball. Something like this, I think these are 2 by 3. That's a decent size for something to stay in throughout my seed starting season until they get planted out. So I like to do that because I don't want to have to transplant things and up pot them into a bigger container. I don't want that extra work if I can help it. So this is what I use. I really like it. I am going to be using it this year. However, I have decided I'm going to try something new this year. Let me show you. So this little nifty device here is a soil blocker. And it's basically just like a mold for soil. And you get your soil wet, pack it in here, and then you just punch it out. And as you can see, there's these white little knobs. That is going to leave an indentation for your seed, and then you just cover it over with a little bit more soil. So really sustainable. I don't need to use any sort of pot, which is great. I know it's also really great for roots, for airflow. It's really nice because you can see all of the soil. It's not, you know, hidden by a container, so you can see when the soil looks dry. There's no guessing work there. So I'm gonna try that with you guys this year, and we're gonna see how it works out and how I like it. Okay, so next up would be soil. What are you gonna start your seeds in? So I like to use organic whenever possible. Some good seed starting mixes would be by Esposma. I think Jiffy has an organic one, Pro Mix. Seed starting mixes are good. You can also use a potting soil mix. Just, you may have to sift out all of the bigger pieces. It may impede germination and allowing that teeny tiny little seed to poke up through the soil if something too heavy is on top of it. So you want like a good fine mix, but you can use a potting soil, that's fine. I would stay away from anything labeled garden soil. It's gonna be too heavy and too dense, as well as using any dirt just from your own yard. I don't do that. I would not recommend doing that. Then you're bringing in bacteria, bugs, other things that can totally wipe out your seedlings overnight. So we don't want to do that. Everything that you're going to purchase from the store, at least seed starting mix, is going to be sterile. But that also means it doesn't have any like life nutrients in it. When you plant a seed, that little seed contains all of the nutrients and energy it needs to germinate and pop up through the soil until it gets its first true set of leaves. But after that point, it doesn't have anything else to give to the plant. So you're going to need to add in food, some sort of fertilizer. Keep that in mind when using seed starting mix. I learned that the hard way, and I'm like, why are my plants stunted? Why are they not growing? They didn't have any food. So I like to use a fish fertilizer or like a kelp fertilizer. It's liquid. It can just be mixed with water and applied to your plants. And I think the brand I like is by Neptune's Harvest. I can link it for you in the description. But that's what I use there. It makes me think of something. You want to make sure that you have some sort of tray. I like to bottom water. So rather than spraying overhead and getting the leaves wet, that can promote a lot of disease and mold and fungus. I like to bottom water. So I will fill this tray with water, like a 1/4 inch, maybe a 1/2 inch, and allow the roots to suck it up from the bottom through these holes. So that is how I do it. These also come in handy when hardening off, which we'll get into at a later date, but hardening off just get your plants ready to be outside in an uncontrolled environment. We are growing them in a controlled environment. We've got good temperature and light. We're not exposing them to pests and wind, and we need to at some point acclimate them. So that's hardening off. And to do that, you have to take them outside. So you need a good way to transport them. So a nice sturdy tray is gonna help with that. Okay, so now I'm gonna show you how I start my own seed starting mix. This makes sense for me to do this. I buy some of these things in a bit more bulk because I start so many. Last year, I think I had about 1,200 seeds. Now I sold some of them at a seedling sale, but this year I'm probably gonna grow around the same amount just for my own space because we expanded it so much. So it makes sense for me to buy all of this stuff in bulk and do it myself rather than buy, you know, the small bags that you can get at the big box stores. So what I use, this is Coco Core. It is a peat moss alternative. These are in like compressed bricks that expand with water. So I'm gonna use, it's gonna be 1 part Coco Core, 1 part organic compost. If I had some of my own ready, I would be using that, or if I could source some locally, but I can't this time of year. So I just purchased bagged compost. It's organic, it's OMRI listed, so I'm using that. So 1 part to each of those. And then I am going to do a 1/2 part of perlite. This is good for proper drainage and aeration of the soil. And I'm gonna do a 1/2 part vermiculite, and this is good for helping to retain moisture. Kelp meal, as well as, this is azomite, which is basically pulverized volcanic ash. Is that what it says? Volcanic rock. Pulverized volcanic rock. And then they've got things like your potassium, calcium, magnesium, sodium, things that are vital to good, healthy plants. If your soil is dead, so is your food. So that is what I use. So I'm gonna mix all of that up. The first thing I'm gonna do is add some water to these Coco Core blocks and get them expanding. And then once that is ready, I'll mix up my other components, make sure it is to the right moisture level, and then we're gonna start filling some containers and soil blocking. We're gonna see how that goes. So before we start working with the soil mix, getting that together and planning some things, I wanted to take you all downstairs to show you my grow room, which isn't really a room, it's a corner in the basement. But my grow light setup, type of shelving I use, the type of lighting I use, just to give you an idea of what you can work with. It's nothing fancy, but it gets the job done. So let's go check it out. Okay, so we're down in my basement. It's pretty dingy down here, and the angles for which I can actually capture this shelf are very few. So this is, how many shelves do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4 shelves. This rack, I think I got from Target. I can link something similar for you all. I really like it. It's nice and sturdy. It wasn't super expensive. Now we're dealing with inflation, so I can't speak for that anymore. This is what my seeds will live on from now until May when I plant them out. I don't use anything fancy when it comes to lighting. You don't need super fancy, you don't need things that are even labeled for seed starting. I just use shop lights. These are fixtures I think I got at Home Depot. There's some here that I got from Walmart as well, and I can link some good options for you all, try and find the best prices. The fixtures don't matter so much as the light bulbs do. You just want a high lumen count. 5,000 plus is great, and a high Kelvin count. So that would be like 4,100 to 6,500. And if it doesn't give you a Kelvin rating, then just look for something that says daylight. Something you do want is you want the lights to be adjustable. I have them set up with just some chains and some S-hooks. And when you first put your seedlings here, you can see so well up there, put this tray here. After the seedlings have germinated and sprouted, they're above the soil, I will lower these light fixtures to about 1 inch or 2 over those leaves. They need a lot of concentrated light. If you have them too high, they're going to start to stretch for that light because they're not getting enough, and you're going to end up with leggy seedlings. And that's not going to be a healthy, thriving seedling, and it could very well die. So you want to be able to lower and raise these light fixtures. Now, something you're going to notice I don't use is heating mats for germination. So if I turn the camera We have a coal stove right next to my growing rack, and it is very warm in this basement. So I don't have any issues with the temps being too cold that things won't germinate. So if you have your setup in a cooler space, you may want to invest in a heating mat to aid in germination. All right, let's get our seed starting mix ready. So I like to use hot water. I find that the bricks expand a little bit faster when using hot water. It is pretty neat to see how much these little things expand as they soak up all that water. Here's what it looks like after it has absorbed everything. So now I am just eyeballing. I'm not the most exact when it comes to measuring, so I'm putting about equal parts of compost to coco coir. Then we're adding about a quarter part of each of perlite and vermiculite, although the vermiculite bag got away from me and I added way more than I meant to, but it'll be just fine. It's not an exact science. And then I added a quarter cup each of the azomite and the kelp meal. So I'm just gonna mix all that up really well until it is completely combined. And I sift through, making sure to break up any big chunks and remove things that are just a little bit too big for my preferences. Okay, so soil's ready. I'm gonna start filling my containers. The way that I do this, I will just kind of fill it all the way to the top. And then I do push it down somewhat firmly. Not to compact it, but you know, it's just in there a little firm. And then I take some extra and I just lightly put that over the top. I don't pack that down at all. And that's all I do to fill up any sort of container. All right, so we're gonna see how this soil blocker does. I'm just gonna take it in here and firmly wiggle it around in the dirt. I can see that there's like little slots here. I can see that I pushed it up high enough. So now I'm just gonna put it in my tray, push down a little bit, and then pull up on the lever. And there you go. A little soil block. And see it has the indent. I can just put the seed right in there and then just put a little bit of soil on top. So there we go. We're gonna see how these hold up and stay together and see if I like working with them. Okay, so we're gonna get started on planting some things, but just a quick word on seed depth. So on the back of the packets, let's see if it actually says on this one. Yes. On this basil packet here, it says 1/4 inch deep. Okay, now that can get a little bit overwhelming looking through all of your seed packets and seeing what the recommended depth is. And the rule I always follow is always plant your seed twice as deep as it is wide. You don't want to go too deep. So a seed has a certain amount of stored energy that it uses to germinate and make its way to the surface before, you know, the leaves start growing and it starts to photosynthesize, creating its energy. So if you plant it too deep, it may run out of energy before it gets to the surface. And some people think that might be, you know, I had poor germination. Well, maybe your germination was fine, maybe you just planted it too deep. So I always just follow that rule. A very important step is labeling all of your seedlings. Don't be like me and forget to do it and then wonder what you're growing. So I'm just gonna show you 2 different varieties with seeds that are different sizes. So this is a basil seed and you can see they're teeny tiny. All I'm really gonna do for these is just brush some soil to the side and scatter 2 to 3 seeds on top. I like to always do 2 to 3 seeds per container just to make sure that I am guaranteeing germination. So just brushing some soil to the side, sprinkling 2 to 3 seeds in there, and then lightly covering back up and pressing down gently. And put those labels in there, don't forget. I like to include the date on my tags as well, just to keep track of how things are growing. Here is some sage that I'm going to be starting. You can see these seeds are a bit bigger. So I'm actually going to take my fingertip and make a nice little indentation in the soil. Remember, twice as deep as the seed is wide. And then again, I'm just going to sprinkle in 2 to 3 seeds and lightly tamp the soil on top of them. When everything is planted, I like to mist everything again, making sure that those seeds are nice and damp. You want to consistently keep the soil damp, not soaking wet, but you don't want it to dry out, at least not for too long. So always make sure that the soil is nice and damp. Now, I will continue to water this way until I have germination. Once they have grown their first set of leaves, then I will start to bottom water and give them their first round of fertilizer. Now, I'm going to get these trays down onto my grow shelf. I'm going to go ahead and get my lights lowered and ready, but until they germinate, they don't need the light. So if you have a cooler space, you might want to get those heat mats started up to aid in germination, but you don't have to worry about the lights until they've actually popped through the surface, but make sure to keep an eye on them. You don't want to wait too long to get the lights on them. So I like to set alarms on my phone to check them in the morning and the evening, making sure that they are staying consistently damp. And then as soon as I see germination, I get those lights on them. And the lights need to stay on for about 12 to 14 hours every day. And depending on what you are growing, germination can take anywhere from just a couple days all the way up to like 2 weeks. So don't be worried if you don't see something happen within a day or two. It might take a little bit. So I'm going to keep you guys posted, let you know how these seedlings are doing, and I'll continue to bring you along throughout the rest of my seed starting process. Alright you guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope this video gets you excited to start some seeds and gives you the confidence to do so. If you have any questions, please drop them below in the comments. I will be happy to answer them for you. As always, just thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate it. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I hope you all have a blessed day, and I will catch you in the next one. Take care.